What's up, guys? It's Mickey here again, and I am here with Paragon Exotics. Now, these guys breed a lot of cool stuff. They breed monitors, they breed retics, they breed rock pythons, they breed anacondas, they breed berms. I mean, they love all of the big stuff. So, what got you started?
Man, when I was a kid, I just always was into the lizards and the snakes, and that's what I did in my pastime. My first snake I ever got, I hit a home run to get because my parents were scared to death of them. And I didn't realize you could actually make a good living dealing with the reptiles and doing what I love so much. So I ended up 16, 20 years old. I got out of them, and I got into construction, building, all that. And then I started looking back, you know, this is 20 plus years later, and I start seeing all this stuff back in the day. This stuff was 30, 40 grand for just the albino. They just was starting. So nobody could afford that back then. So now it's like I'm a kid in a candy store. I got to retire from my construction companies. I started bringing all these animals in, and my wife thought I was crazy. And now, 7 years later, we have warehouses full. We are breeding nonstop, and we can't think. It's fun. It's like I'm a kid in a candy store. That's what it is.
I think we're all a little bit crazy, you know, keeping all these animals. Like I love the anacondas and things like that, you know. So I feel like, you know, like the retics and the anacondas, you know, anybody could really own them. They just have to be responsible keepers, you know. What kind of suggestions would you give somebody, you know, would be looking to buy an anaconda today? Well, like as far as enclosure setup and things like that.
You know, there's a lot of mixed feelings with this. You know, a lot of people have goods and downs and stuff like that. And people say little kids shouldn't have a big snake or this or that, or women shouldn't buy retics, and people have all kinds of different beliefs. But with me, I had these animals when I was 9 years old. And what I had at 9 years old was actually wild caught from the wild, totally different than what these animals are today. These are captive born and bred animals, and there's no age requirement that's needed. There could be some parenting that should be involved in this type of deal, but my parents let me deal with it, and instead of getting in trouble at school and doing all the stuff, or going out drinking and partying with everybody, I was at home with my animals. And it kept me out of trouble. It was the best thing in the world, because I was the type I could have gotten in trouble. If I don't get something going, if I ain't got something to do, I'm quick to find trouble. So in that situation, I think with anacondas, what I would do is get with a breeder that will actually be in your corner a text message away. You would want to deal with captive born and bred, of course. Some F1s, F2s, F3s can be a little funny, but when you get into the F4s and F5s, you know, off of generations off of wild caught, they do simmer down quite a bit. Anacondas can be somewhat dangerous when they get that type of weight. But if you tame it, you train it, you love on it, you know that animal, you raise it as a baby all the way up, it will grow with you. Anacondas grow super slow. So, I mean, you could buy it, you know, say you're 10 years old. As long as your parents are with you, is the rule with all these big snakes, is you always should have 2 people with you.
Well, and I like that you mentioned that, you know, because we're definitely not saying that you would sell an anaconda to a 10-year-old.
Right.
But you would sell it to their parents, and that could be a project that they could work on together.
And believe it or not, like you said, that actually brings, because sometimes parents and kids don't even know how to communicate with each other.
Yeah, they got a disconnect.
Yep. The kids are playing video games. You know, the parents are working in the yard or whatever, you know, so there is a break. But these animals actually can bond that and bring that closer, and which we would never sell a snake to a 9-year-old. It's always with a parent right beside them, okaying and understanding what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, because these are big commitments. I mean, an anaconda, you know, that's an adult anaconda is going to need a big enclosure.
Yes, adult anaconda. I've got a 16-footer, probably 200-pounder at home, and that's a big animal. Now, that is a snake that there's not many people can handle without knowing what they're doing. You know, But she's a sweetheart. She's a big puppy dog sweetheart. I respect her. I know what she is. I know what she can do. And like I said, I don't take no chances with them. And that's what you really have to communicate when you are dealing with these type of animals, that, you know, mistakes are made. And 9 times out of 10, in a situation that can go bad, it's a mistake that's made by the owner.
Yeah, that's always the issue, you know. Yeah. I'd always suggest, you know, a properly sized enclosure with locks on it. Mm-hmm. Make sure it's a secure enclosure. Don't slap something together.
Exactly.
And think well enough is good enough, because these animals are good at escaping if they're not put in a secured enclosure.
A good locked area, because the strength level on a boa, I call them boas, but on a anaconda is you can't even really explain the strength on a, just say, a 9-foot anaconda versus a 9-foot retic. You pick both of them animals up and you can tell the difference. Yeah. Just in a few seconds. You know, the anacondas they're just powerful animals. They're strong, and when they're holding on, you know, they're holding on so they don't fall. And a lot of people, they don't, you know, like I said, you have to understand what you're dealing with, and you got to put time in with your animals. You know, you have to spend time with them. You can't just put them in boxes and leave them. You got to work with them. You got to get them out. Most of our snakes are coming out weekly just for cleaning checks, and every day it's a job.
Well, these are big commitments.
Oh yes, they're big commitments, but in my mind, there's a commitment is with any animal, whether it's a gecko or anaconda. You still have to watch it, and I think some people misunderstand that. You know, gecko requires a lot of work too. You know, you have to be on, maybe not like an anaconda type of work, but our anacondas are on special drains. We can drain their systems. We can clean them out in, no time. We can pull them.
But there's a big difference between keeping an animal and possessing an animal. Yeah. Keeping an animal is giving it that maintenance, the attention that it needs. You know, a lot of people do get that messed up. They want to possess it. They're like, I got this retic. Well, that's cool, but what are you doing with it?
Right, exactly. And, and that's where you have to keep these prices where they need to be, because if you get them too cheap, everybody will buy them. And the next thing you know, they're flooding the market. They're dying. People's not taking care of them. I like to keep my prices right, because it is basically an investment when you buy one of these animals. Yeah. And if your value is up like they should be, then these people are not going to just throw them in boxes and let them die. You know what I mean? They have to have a commitment when they're spending $1,500 on that animal. Oh, yeah. So it actually levels out the playing field, and it gets, and I hate to say it like that, but when you're dealing with when you raise the bar on the value of that animal, it pulls your serious people that actually know what they're getting themselves into, and they're gonna do whatever it takes to keep that animal happy. Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, when you sell a retic at $200, any Joe Blow in the world can buy that snake. But the problem is, very few, probably less than 20% of them could actually take care of it. You know, and that's where the problem lies in the retics versus the anacondas, and then the ball pythons and all that. Some of these animals, they have to have some value for people to take care of.
Yeah, they're not toys.
They're not toys. That's exactly right. Good word. That's the thing. People come here, they're cute, they're this or that, and they take it home, and they don't have no money invested in it. They got $200 invested. It's like a stuffed animal to them.
Well, generally, the enclosure and the upkeep usually costs more than the animal does.
If you do it right, it should. Yeah. It's supposed to, But, like I said, there's a lot of different things that you can go with these animals here, and with the rep and the bad rep, some of them get, some of the good. Actually, I think a retic is one of the best snakes you could ever imagine. They're the sweetest snakes, I know.
I always enjoy them when I raise them up myself. Now, if I get them second or third hand from people that pass them around for a while, they can be a little rotten, but that's because they haven't gotten the attention that they need.
Well, I come out in the 90s. So, I was a young kid, and retic was just like a Holy wow. You could only get really pretty much wild caughts back then.
Yeah.
And they were basically just saws. I mean, so when I got in, which it was always one of my favorite snakes, you know, and when I got like, shoot up 7 years ago when I picked back up, and I brought a snake home because I started watching all this stuff on actually Facebook. I started seeing everybody selling these snakes. I'm like, man, you couldn't even get them snakes. That snake's what? And then, so I was a kid in the candy store, so I started bringing these snakes home. My wife was like, dude, what are you doing? I said, man, look at this. I said, look at this. This snake is amazing. And to me, and I think I bought it for $200. It was like a 8 or 9 foot male retic, lavender. And to me, that was like a $40,000 animal in my hand because that's all I knew. That's all I remember.
Yeah, so, something Bob Clark brought in.
Yeah,
it's an albino.
So, but this is 20 years later, so when I got to see it, it was like, I just bought this for $200.
Like
and then my wife, then once I learned it, I started bringing them in almost every day. My wife said, what are you doing? What are you doing? I said, well, I'm going to breed these things. I'm going to learn how to breed these things. And I always knew how to take care of them. And the breeding came pretty natural, and it's pretty easy. It's not really complicated, hard. And next thing you know, here we are, 7 years later, and the monitors, I mean, this stuff was unheard of back then. So it's a tremendous blessing for people like us to be able to get to spend time with animals like this because...
Well, and that's why it's important that we keep them properly.
Yeah.
Because stuff like this is getting a bad reputation all over the place. And I think it's our job as reptile keepers to tell new people, hey,
how to handle it.
Let's do this the right way so we don't lose these,
Yeah, and see, a lot of people don't realize that, with a blink of an eye, it could all be gone.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it's that close. And like I said, you've got to keep on supporting USARC. USARC, without USARC, man, we're just sitting in the water. And can't wait to see the auction today, Mick. I'm glad you're putting it on. It's going to be it's pretty cool that you do that for them. And, and I know every show we try to do it.
Oh, yeah, it's a good
you always
time.
Get a good turnout, so
it's a good
always
time.
Good.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming and seeing us.
Oh, yeah.